What is going on, my fellow nerds? Operator Otter here, and it is time. The cream de la crop, the knees bees, the flavor of the month build for Necromancers in Season 4. Minions. Yes, minions are very, very excited to play for not just Necromancers, but for all players because it just follows the philosophy of Necromancers, right? I control Army of the Dead, go forth and do my bidding. I think people are very excited about the fact that they are very viable now, and they are one of the top builds going into Season 4, and it just looks fun. So we're going to talk about it. Now, the thing is that as I was recording this video, my Discord just got blasted with like 20 messages telling me that Adam Jackson just confirmed that the Golem Mastery is going to be nerfed from 5 pieces of gear being able to roll it to 1. And this means that we are going to get a max value of 25 ranks down to 5 ranks. Now, this obviously hurts the Golem damage by quite a bit. We are no longer going to see 6.6 billion damage. We are still going to see billions of damage, but not quite that high. Macro Bio Boy did a really good in-depth video of him just taking every single multiplier, every single stat in the entire game that he can have for Golem and still proving that you're gonna hit for over 1 billion damage. So if this is still something that you are very excited for and want to play, as it will still be a top build for the Necromancer, then stay tuned. We're gonna get talking about it. Now, in this Diablo 4 planner, we have the Summoner to 50 and the Vega Summoner. This is gonna be for leveling builds. We'll save that for the leveling guide on Monday. But the first one I want to talk about is the Army of the Dead minion, because I believe this is going to be the most played variant, just simply because I feel a lot of people like Army of the Dead. I think Army of the Dead just feels Necromancer-y in terms of the whole minion thing. So I think that's going to be the build that people go towards or gravitate towards the best. But I do believe that Shadowstorm has some things to it that make it a little bit better. But we'll get there. Okay, so Army of the Dead. Let's talk about it. So Army of the Dead, it's a 70-second cooldown, and when you activate it, you call forth skeletons, they emerge, they explode, and it's active for 7 seconds. That's really the thing. It's active for 7 seconds. We're going to combine this with the aspect of Unyielding Commander, which states that while Army of the Dead is active, your minions gain 200% damage. Now, this is not additive. This is multiplicative damage. I know it says it's additive. It's multiplicative. And they also take 180% reduced damage, and it's important to keep our minions alive. But like I said, this thing is a 70-second cooldown, and it's only active for 7 seconds, so how do we upkeep it? Well, the way that we're going to do this is that we are going to run ultimate cooldown reduction in both of our rings. We're going to run ultimate cooldown reduction in our amulet and regular cooldown reduction, and then we're going to run cooldown reduction in our helm. And the combination of all of this means 75% cooldown reduction, which is the cap. This is going to reduce Army of the Dead's cooldown from 70 seconds to 17.5 seconds. But it's only active for 7 seconds, so we still need to reduce it by 10.5 seconds. How are we going to do that? Well, with the new corpse tendril size, we are able to get those corpse tendrils to really reach far and to hit a lot of things. And so what we're going to do in our skill tree is we're actually going to run blighted corpse tendrils. So now when corpse tendrils hits something, it has a 35% chance to spawn a blood orb. And if it's hitting 20 enemies, you're going to spawn about 7 of these orbs. And you combine that with aspect of fast blood, 7 times 2.5 is 17.5 seconds. So you're just able to walk over these orbs and completely reset your Army of the Dead. Fantastic. That's how we upkeep Army of the Dead 100% of the time. Really good. The next thing that we want to talk about as our next most powerful multiplier is Cult Leader. Now, Cult Leader has 2 things going on with it. It states that for every 20% attack speed that you gain, your minions are going to deal 30% more multiplicative damage. The thing is with this is that it is breakpoints. So you can have 39.99% damage, or sorry, 39.99% attack speed. You're still only going to get that 30% increase. It's not until you hit 40% increased attack speed that it will be 60%. That's just the way it works. The second thing is that it states that it's a maximum up to 100 attack speed bonus. It's not. It's bypassed that. It can go up to 200% because you have 2 buckets for attack speed, being your gear and your paragon and your aspects and your skills. And we do have a way to bypass the 100%, but that's what we want to do. So in this build, if we look at our attack speed, we have 43.5% attack speed in our main hand, and then we have 41.9% attack speed in our main hand and our paragon. And you're sitting to yourself going, well, that's 84, 85%. So where are we actually getting the bonus attack speed? Well, if we go to our skill tree and we look at Kaelin's Edict, we get 3% attack speed for each active minion, and we're going to have 12. So this is going to give us 36% attack speed. That will supersede the 100% attack speed, no problem. We'll meet that. And the reason I did it in this combination is that you are able to easily bypass that point. But the best way to do it is to actually not roll minion attack speed here and instead roll crit damage, and then you actually roll attack speed in your gloves. And if you are able to do that, I'm going to show you right here. If you do that, it goes from 1100% to 101.3%. So you have 1.3% leeway in your rolls to actually get to that 100%, and that is going to be like the min-max version of how you want to do that. But if you want to just immediately get to that 100%, make sure to roll attack speed and minion attack speed in your scythe, and you'll be good to go. That will activate. You are also going to be running Aspect of Frenzy Dead. This is going to give you another 45% attack speed that'll bypass the 100% because it's an aspect, so you have 145% attack speed to your minions, which is going to give you 210% multiplicative damage to your minions because of how that works. Really cool, right? We're also running Aspect of Reanimation, and we're going to be running Aspect of Grasping Veins. Now, why are we running Aspect of Grasping Veins? We need crit. We need a lot of crit because we want our Golem to crit when we press the Golem ability. Now, we naturally have 57.6% crit hit chance in this build. And when we activate Corpse Tendrils, this is going to go from 57.6% to 82.6%. And that's still not 100%. But with our new Inspiring Leader giving our minions 18% critical hit strike when we're healthy, this will be 100%. Now, this is if you have like top tier rolls in the crit. You have to be pretty much top tier because this just barely bypasses 100%. But as long as you are above 90%, you're going to be good. The build's going to function very, very well. So there's no reason to worry about that. That's going to be fantastic. Okay, so then we want to talk about some of the defensives that are going on with this build because we want to make sure that we are surviving because Abattoir, they said that Pit 150 was going to be equivalent to Abattoir 025 and minions, or the monsters hit really hard in that. So we want to make sure that we're able to stay alive. Well, we're not running Bone Storm, so we're not going to have some damage reduction, but we're going to fix that with some life rolls. So we have 70% all resistances. That's good there. We look at our armor. We have 8,500, and you're saying, hey, that's not the cap. It needs to be 9,300. Well, we're going to get that with spiked armor because as I put points or take points away in this, nothing happens to the armor roll. You put points in this, you should have about 9,600 armor, which will put you 300 above the cap. So you're going to be good there. The next thing is look how much life we're running in this build. 47,000. That's a lot of life. And we're still going to be running things that give us damage reduction like Hardened Bones. So we are going to have forms of damage reduction in this build, and we have the minions that are going to be kind of pseudo-tanking for us, and we're going to be locking down things forever. Another form of defense that I think is going to happen, especially with Abattoir Azir, is the whole Corpse Tendril Corpse Tendril duration thing. So this is the new one. What we're going to do is we're going to take all of the things that hard CC out of our build, and we're just going to run Corpse Tendril duration. And when we run 2 of these, what it's going to do is it's going to buff the stun duration from 3 seconds to 6 seconds. And then what we'll do is we're going to run crowd control duration in our boots and our gloves. That will multiply on top of the base, I believe, of Corpse. I don't think it's going to be 6 seconds. It's going to multiply on 3. And that'll give it another second and a half. So now Corpse Tendril stuns things for 7.5 seconds. You can do that 3 times before enemies become unstoppable. So you can actually lock down enemies for 22.5 seconds, which is enough for 3 Army of the Dead rotations. And that's going to be very strong. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to talk about is how we're actually going to implement just a little bit of extra damage just in the build, which is going to be the Vulnerable. So Vulnerable gives a 20% damage increase multiplicatively, and then we're also going to be running exploits. So we definitely want ways to do this because 20% times 10% is going to be about 32% increase multiplicative damage. So we definitely want to make things vulnerable. We're going to run Cold Mages. The Cold Mages are going to freeze things and make them vulnerable. It's not going to like affect like the entire group per se, just because Cold Mages attacks, I don't think they pierce or they do AoE. If they do AoE, that's great. I'm not totally for certain on that, but it's going to definitely be very important for the boss. That is for sure. And that will give them the vulnerability and give you 30% multiplicative damage there. We're also going to be running Reapers to create corpses. Why? Because we want to raise skeletons, and we're going to be raising skeletons to increase their damage by 30% multiplicatively, but we're also going to be running Blood Getters. Now, Blood Getters empower you at 70% of the effectiveness. Whatever increases your damage also can increase the minion damage, except for Grasping Veins. Grasping Veins is the weird one. But Blood Getters will double dip. And so what that means is that as we're raising skeletons, we're also going to get the Blood Getters bonus to us, which will also double dip back into the minions as well. When you actually raise the skeleton, you are consuming a corpse, and this can activate your Flesh Eater. That's how we actually get this active. So let's actually talk about the gameplay loop here, right? What are we doing to actually get to do all the damage? So the way that you do this is that your minions go out, they're attacking things, they're creating their corpses. You cast Raise Skeleton 4 times. This is going to give you 4 stacks of Flesh Eaters, so you're prepped. Everything's good to go. You're going to activate your Army of the Dead. You're going to activate your Corpse Tendrils. I think it's Corpse Tendrils, then activate Army of the Dead. So activate Corpse Tendrils. That'll give you about a second. You'll activate Army of the Dead. Corpse Tendrils pulls everything in. Right when it pulls everything in, you activate Raise Skeletons. This is going to activate your Flesh Eater. You decrepify everything in the middle. This is going to activate your Amplify damage and your Lucky Hit Chance stuff with your passives. And then you press Golem, everything go boom. As soon as everything go boom, you walk around, you pick up your orbs to reset your army of the dead, you cast Raise Skeleton 4 times to get your stacks for your Flesh Eater, everything's set, everything's ready to go, you cast Corpse Tendrils, you cast Army of the Dead, you cast Raise Skeleton, you Decrepify, you press Golem, boom. That's the rotation. That's how it works. Very strong, very fun. I think this is going to be a really cool thing. This Paragon board, I want to give a shout out to Macro. This is literally a copy pasta of his build, and I really like this Paragon board. He's very, very gifted and very intelligent at making Paragon boards. So big shout out to Macro. Really nice job on this. I really like this Paragon board. So that's essentially how we are doing the things with Army of the Dead minion. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Shadowstorm. So I think Shadowstorm has a little bit higher of a threshold in terms of the peak damage that it can do, and we're going to talk about why. So the first thing that's doing is that instead of Army of the Dead, it's going to be running Blighted, and it's going to be running Bone Storm. So let's talk about Bone Storm first. Why is Bone Storm so important? Bone Storm is going to give us crit, so we don't need to roll that in our gear. It's going to give us another 15% damage reduction, and it's also going to give us a lot of defensive utility by combining with aspect of Ultimate Shadow with aspect of Shielding Storm. And we'll talk about that in a minute. The other thing is that we are running Blighted. So how are we activating Blighted? Because Blighted, the way it works is that you need to deal 10 instances of shadow damage to an enemy that activates Shadow Blight. When you activate Shadow Blight 10 times, that's how you're going to activate your Blighted. Well, with Bone Storm going around your Golem and you with aspect of Ultimate Shadow, this now makes it so that instead of Bone Storm ticking for 2 instances of damage per second, it's now going to be 6 because it adds a dot that is twice per second, but it applies that once every half a second. So you get 6 instances of shadow damage every second per Bone Storm, and you have a Bone Storm around you, and you have a Bone Storm around your Golem, which equals 12 instances of shadow damage to enemies. So if you're around 10 enemies, and you and your Golem are right there, and you activate Bone Storm, this will tick, and in 1 second, Blighted is activated. Very fast, right? And on top of that, if we want to do it from a distance, we have Blight. Blight is going to give us even more multiplicative damage because of the way that it works with the you and your minions deal 20% increased damage to enemies. And then we are also going to be running these shadow minions that for every one active that we have, we get 3 times more just base damage, period. It's not just shadow damage, it's us. So this is going to give us 12% more multiplicative damage, and the attacks are going to pierce, and it's going to help stack our Blight even more. We are going to upkeep Blight very easily, and it gives us a 240% multiplicative modifier rather than a 200% like Unyielding Commander. So that's really good. But now what we need to do is we need to upkeep Bone Storm. So the way that we're going to do this is kind of the same way with Army of the Dead. We are going to run ultimate cooldown reduction in our ring and one of our amulets, and then we're running cooldown reduction in our amulet and our helm. This is going to give us about 60% cooldown reduction, which is going to reduce the cooldown of Bone Storm from 60 seconds down to 24 seconds. And then we run Bone Storm duration in the scythe. This is going to go from 10 seconds to 17.2 seconds. So we now have 17 seconds to reduce the cooldown of Bone Storm by 7 seconds. And when you are running Bone Storm and Blight and your minions and Decrepify, I think it's going to be very easy to reduce the cooldown of your Bone Storm by 7 seconds in 17 seconds with all of that going on. And I think that's exactly how we're going to upkeep that 100% Bone Storm uptime. The other thing is the defensive utility, which is just super awesome. So the way that we learned in Abattoir Zero with this is that with aspect of Shielding Storm and aspect of Ultimate Shadow, like I said, every single time Bone Storm deals damage, it's going to give you a shield. But with aspect of Ultimate Shadow, it's not 2 times a second, it's 6 times a second. And so that means that you are able to, in a really like in a sense of like a dot, like let's say you're poisoned or you're under fire or something like that, or you're in like those little lightning things, you're gonna get this 6% of your base life like shield happening 6 times per second per enemy that's being hit. And so if you're hitting a group of enemies like this, you are just instantly regenerating the shield every single time. And that is super strong. But on top of that, in our Paragon board, we are also going to have access to the Wither board, which gives us damage reduction over shadow time affected enemies. So this is going to give us 12% damage reduction because Ultimate Shadow turns your Bone Storm into a dot ability, which is super awesome. So we now have 12% extra damage reduction here, and we have the 15% damage reduction while Bone Storm is active, and that is super powerful to keeping us alive. Now this build does not run 47k, it runs 26k life, but with all of that damage reduction that we are getting over the other build, our effective HP is going to be the same or a little bit more, just because we have all of that damage reduction working into our build. On top of that, we have still our main armor breakpoint, same thing, we're running spiked armor, so this will be about 96, 9700, and then we are able to have our full resistances, so we are good there. Now the playstyle loop to this one is a little bit different. The way that this works is that you're going to cast Blight against a target, and you're going to let your Bone Storm and your Shadow Minions kind of like stack up your Blighted, and as soon as Blighted is procced, you're going to cast your Corpse Tendrils, you're going to make sure that you have your Raised Skeleton at 4 stacks for your Flesh Eater, so you got it ready. It's prepped. You're at 4 stacks. The Shadow Blight's about to go off. You activate Corpse Tendrils. Everything gets pulled in. Shadow Blight gets, or the Blighted aspect gets procced. You press Raise Skeleton to activate the Skeletal Priest with Blood Getters and everything, and you get that bonus damage. You also get the bonus damage of the Flesh Eater, and then you Decrepify everything. You press Golem, everything go boom. So it's kind of the same, a little bit different because you're going to be waiting for Blighted to be activated, but Blighted will come online so fast that you don't really have to do a lot of setup in this. It's just honestly going to be active, and you can just do it a lot more passively and a lot more active rather than really waiting for everything to be up. You can just go. And so I think that just has a little bit more on the end game potential list of that. Now, going into the last one, which is going to be our Uber boss killer. This is going to what we're going to run when we're like killing the tormented Ubers, the Uber bosses. And essentially what we're doing is we're dipping both into Blighted and Unyielding Commander. It's still the same, basically the exact same build. It's just now what we're doing is we're going to use Blight and the Shadow minions to essentially go out and just do their thing. Right? They are going to slowly stack this Shadow Blight. It's going to take about 5 to 6 seconds to get everything stacked, but as you're doing that, you're going to be raising your skeletons. You got 4 stacks of raised skeletons, so you got your 4 stacks ready for Flesh Eater. You're casting your Blight. Your minions are going out. You're waiting for that Blight to come active. Right before that Blight goes active, you cast your Corpse Tendrils. You cast your raised skeleton. That's going to turn on Blood Getters. It's going to turn on Flesh Eater. It's going to turn on Grasping Veins. Blighted comes online. You press Army of the Dead, which activates your Unyielding Commander, and then you Decrepify it. You press Golem, and boom. That's what you get. Now, obviously, with the nerfs that they are putting into the build for the ranks to Golem Mastery, they're not going to hit as hard, but it's still going to hit for over 1 billion damage, and it's still going to be a very good boss killer, if not the best boss killer. I think pretty much it's going to be the best boss killer in the game, no doubt. But that's essentially how that works. Those are the minion builds. So if you are an avid minion player, and this is how you're kind of going for it, these are the end game builds for that. We will be releasing leveling guides that will talk about how you're going to level minions, and there are multiple ways that you can level minions. You can do Shadow, you can do Blood Surge, you can do Bone Storm with Corpse Explosion like Bombardier, hint hint wink wink, that's what I'm going to be doing, and it'll be really good. It's going to be really solid. Minions are just really fun for season 4, so stay tuned for that. If you liked the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. In the description below, I will leave some videos and some more things from Macro Bioboy in the description below that are going to be talking about the cult leader breakpoints, as well as the whole new nerf to the bone to the Golem ranks that's going to be there, and talking about the damage that's going to be there. And then if you want to, on Tuesday, I will be going live at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you want to come in and support me doing the whole season 4 start and kind of watch and lurk around or ask any questions that you have, awesome. We have so much more YouTube content coming over the next few days, so I'll be busy on that, not being on Twitch. But other than that, I have nothing for you. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Operator Otter.